Welcome to Common Mansplaining! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Happy Martin Luther King Day. Christian, happy Martin Luther King Day. How's it going?
Hey, any day you can't bank is a good day in America.
You know what? I have to say, they use like it'd be one thing if they just use Christmas, Easter, but they literally have like 40 holidays or 50 holidays, like literally every day that you can think of. Like, what day is this? Oh, it's the day after the week of Columbus Day. It's like, wait, what? What? Why are we?
You can't expect bank workers wearing Arbor Day. I mean, trees need respect.
They need respect. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, speaking of Arbor Day and greens, we're going to talk today about Greenland, which ironically has very little greens in it. Actually, it's funny. One of the very first things that I ever learned about Greenland is that Greenland is almost completely ice, and Iceland has a lot of green, so it's like almost a complete reversal. Anyway, as most of you know, Trump would like to have Greenland. He would like to take Greenland under his wing and envelop that into the American empire's fold.
He has reiterated this recently, yes.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And he started, I guess, saying it like in 2019. And this has been his thing for a while now. He hasn't forgotten, and of late it has become much more adamant about it, right? So yeah, but we're going to dig into this and a lot of the politics around it and some of the philosophical around it. Before we do that, Christian, why don't you give us a little brief history of why this is important to us in the first place?
Sure. So Greenland, it's up there, up in the Arctic. And it's a hard place to live. It's a place you need to be serious about, and not a place that is generally welcoming. Like it's an easy sell. California, land of paradise. Through unlimited growing seasons. Even England, like anything will grow in southern England, and lots of fresh water, things like that. So historically, there've just been sort of ancient peoples that had been there, that had occupied the poles. But really, Europe's interaction was about 980, was when Eric the Red discovered Greenland.
Yep.
And his just marketing, just his sort of salesman sort of thing, named it Greenland so that he could get colonists willing to do the harsh journey and out there, and lots of them did. And you would only really see green around the coasts. 80% presently of the island is dominated by a large ice sheet. Basically, that exists there year round. There are a number of glaciers, but there's an ice sheet, which basically is the same thing, only it doesn't move. Only has certain areas that move. And so from there to about 1500s. The Norway or essentially Eric's people colonized Greenland, but around 1500s they abandoned all their colonies and came back to Norway or whatever. They talk about there was a mini ice age in the late 1500s, early 1600s, little ice age it's called. Anyway, they don't really record why they did, but they did. And then in the mid 1700s, the Danes sent missionaries back because they were worried that they were all still Roman Catholic. That was their worry. Right. There's still people in Denmark. They could be Roman Catholic.
Oh no!
But they have to know about Luther's 95 Theses. So they sent these people just to bring Protestantism, and they found that there were no Europeans there. Right? No white people. No churches, no Catholics. There were just now a new group of native Inuit, very, very closely related to Eskimos, who had come down, brought sled dog culture,
Polar
stuff
bears.
like Anyway, so from some basically 1740s, then Denmark controlled it. They supported the colony. Now coming up to present, the modern era in World War II, yes, it was still Denmark, but if you know anything about World War II history, Denmark was conquered by Germany in about 5 days with about as little resistance as you can imagine.
Right.
And so a few people, one person in particular fled Denmark and came to the U.S. and said that he was the leader really of the Free Danes and begged the U.S. to protect Greenland, which we were willing to do.
Right.
So we went up there. So Germany did not occupy Greenland during World War II. What we're seeing is too big of a threat. So we did. We had somewhat 50,000 men stationed there.
Yep.
And then after World War II with the United Nations, then there's sort of some disputes. That was when it's like, hey, with the Cold War breaking out, we sort of saw, hey, we're already defending Greenland. Maybe this should be in North America.
Right.
And then there was some, but the Danes were like, no, we still, and then Norway made a claim, hey, Eric the Red, our history, this should really be us. It shouldn't
Remember
be
that?
International Court ultimately sided with the Danes, and we didn't push the matter because of Cold War. Denmark has that very key strategic point at the tip of the Baltic, right, that controls a lot of Russian, shipping.
Yep.
And Navy that comes out of the Baltic, out of St. Petersburg, has to go through Danish straits.
Yep.
So we definitely were interested during the Cold War of maintaining good relations with Denmark. So even though but we defended Greenland. We had radar stations, military bases all over the 15 military bases, 50,000 soldiers.
Literally as many people that live there now.
Yeah, we're American soldiers until the Cold War ended. Right. We currently have one base remaining with about 150 people.
Yeah. So,
and then that brings us up. So even though we've expressed that we're providing all the security for Denmark, for Greenland, essentially. Right. And yeah, there's 56,000 people that live there now, and they've had a fraught history with the people on Greenland not really fond of the Danish. There's been a series where they were sort of granted self-rule. They have their own government, except when it comes to foreign policy, like trade agreements and defense.
Right.
And so they've had a lot of history of we can talk about of bad treatment of the native people there, forced sterilizations, things like that. So there are feelings that are really dark against the Danes.
Oh yeah.
But and everybody, so they think that if Denmark or if Greenland could vote, they would want to be independent, except they're tied to the Danish welfare state.
Right.
They don't want to give up the Danish welfare state.
Yeah, it's a complex. Right. Some of the polling I've seen on it was, I think like 85% of them want independence, like in the abstract, but only like just over 50% would actually do it right now because they're like, well, we want to leave, but we don't want to like. Literally, some people don't know this. Denmark sends like $500 million.
I heard the number I read was 600 million a year.
But like that's like half their budget.
Yeah.
It's like most of their money goes just to maintain Greenland, like because they can't maintain itself.
Right. So that's the historical thing. So I've got some interjections, but I want to or things about that. But yeah, feelings about Denmark on Greenland are not universally as pro-Danish as they would like them to be. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they basically look. I mean, just to kind of to put it in a crude term on an MLK Day, they basically look at the Danes like Black people look at Europeans in America, basically like they were the conquerors who were the oppressors of the nation. So like it's unfortunate that they have that kind of strained relationship. But of course, to be fair, they don't particularly like America either, right? Like it's not like they would. If they voted for independence, they wouldn't vote for independence and then jump to America. They would just want to be completely self-governed. Which
and Trump's point is not that even though we would feel like the self-determination is a big key.
Yeah.
His worry is that if the United States isn't claiming them as a territory, that China or Russia will invade and take them over. 56,000 people, doesn't, is not a hard target militarily to overcome by a large army.
Oh, right,
Now,
right.
China and Russia have pushed back and said, we resent the implication that we will invade. We want. So they've said they don't. I think we'll come to it later.
Of course
Why
it is.
they're interested in it, and it doesn't have to do with invading Greenland,
Right.
but it does have to do with just naval.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start
Naval.
there, I guess. So yeah, so obviously the reason that America wants it is largely for the same reason that a would-be China or Russia would want it. The biggest reason and the primary reason is that you get control of the Arctic Circle, right? Basically, you have
A
that
bigger
station,
chunk of it, yeah.
a bigger chunk of it. You can control those shipping lanes, and actually, there's like 3 major shipping lanes that would take people across from the above Canada across the Arctic Circle, and owning Greenland basically covers all 3 essentially, or like a portion of all 3. And let's be honest, Denmark doesn't really have much of a navy. Like they really can't project naval power like America can. They can't, or like China or Russia can, right?
Military. So this week, right? Denmark, and the European coalition sent additional military to Greenland. You're laughing because it was like 15 soldiers or whatever. Some nations it was 1. It was just so they could get the most friendly left-wing media to say, "Hey, we're bolstering our military in Greenland." Like the most sort of like
what a joke! Like
joke sort of force, right?
Added like 1 dog sled's worth of patrol units. I'm like, what is going on? And guys, just so you know, I mean, I thought that was a joke at first too. I thought that was like when someone told me like, "Oh yeah, we added a dog sled." I'm like, okay, right. I thought it was a gimmick. But then, after some research, I'm like, come to find out that's actually how they patrol the area, is like literally by having only like a couple of groups of dog sled teams that, and I mean, if China, heaven forbid, if China or Russia were to ever try to, first of all, it's likely they wouldn't invade the mainland anyway, so the dog sled teams are largely superfluous. But if they did ever try to invade Greenland, so to speak, they'd probably just take control of the northern part so that they have their stations for the Arctic Circle and they can project their power. But this actually, believe it or not, what people don't understand maybe is that this actually holds more defensive strategic potency to us than it would hold offensive strategic potency to our enemies. And part of that is because being able to be in that region, number one, we have a bigger naval power so we can project force better, but also it gives our missile defense systems an additional 2 to 10 minutes depending on the angle of attack.
Yeah, the nuclear war thing is a big selling point. But all right, so if you want to go back, people who are fans of this, we've talked about China and talked about how Eddie and I differ in our opinion. Were hostilities to break out with China, we would blockade the strait that goes from starts at Singapore. Forget what it's called.
The Malacca Strait.
The Malacca Strait,
yep.
Which is China's main way to get goods to the Middle East and Europe through the Suez Canal.
At present.
And so they knowing that, right, having a shorter or an alternate route to go through, hugging Russian waters and going through the Russian side of the Bering Strait to Europe, right, would be their alternative. So that our blockade, an alternate way to Europe for their trade goods during a.
So he's talking about this right here, Strait of Malacca.
Yeah, Straits of Malacca, right, which Singapore is right there at the opening of it near. Anyway, and that's where right now all of China's shipping trade goes to Europe, goes through those straits.
Mostly,
So having Greenland would shut off the Northwest Passage, which is opening up. So oddly enough, Denmark had created the technological innovation. So fuel, when you're running ships through that passage in the winter, right? It's not the ice. There's ice breaking, but it's so cold. The fuel, right,
Itself, right.
doesn't want to, right, type of thing. So they invented a methanol based, wood-based alcohol type of thing that doesn't freeze, that can operate ships in this type of thing. Denmark invented that. And so now it's viable to run trade through there, not just in the summer months,
Right.
but also, with icebreakers year round. And so this speaks to another thing. So Denmark and Europe, but Denmark especially, is very much on the whatever we can do for global warming kind of thing.
Of course.
Very liberal, very, very pro climate change, right? Because they don't have a lot of mountains. They're terrified that if sea levels rise, that they'll end up being like Netherlands and need to have dikes all over the place or whatever, right? So, so that's one of the things they've done is they've held back a real economic development in Greenland.
Yes.
They're sort of terrified that the locals would have cars and refrigerators and have a higher standard of living and have industry mining jobs and that they would develop the type of assets, things that the U.S. says, oh, these are common sense wealth, real economic activity that we can do in Greenland.
Right.
Denmark hasn't wanted to do that purely for ideological reasons related.
Mostly for
mostly, right?
Yeah.
All right. And that's why they've been willing, because they're holding them back, why they've been willing to send them the $600 million check every year. It's sort of like in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina is very depressed because the government tanked the tobacco economy, which was the foundation of their local economy.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of different, like, the roads are ridiculously overbuilt out there, and they're very generous with sort of welfare benefits and other things because they feel bad. Like, we're sorry we tanked your economy. It's a little bit like that. They feel responsible that they're not letting Greenland or Denmark has been able to, even with their self-rule, been able to hold back industrialization of Greenland to a large scale, because of climate reasons.
Right, and of course, if America were to take over, we would very quickly develop. Obviously, one of the things that Trump is, I don't know if I'm supposed to say good at or if it's a bad thing. One of the things he's very adept at, right, efficacious at, is seeing terrain like an untapped resource, right, especially with regard to minerals and like oil and
that's his entrepreneurial spirit.
The natural resources, right? Like he doesn't see land like other people see land. He sees it like, oh my gosh, this is how much this land is worth. This is how much we can tap and take out of the reserves from it. And so he sees each piece of land as a huge piece of investment, not just as like like real estate, but like, man, I can really tap this stuff. And he will. Like, I'm sure the moment, if we acquire control of Greenland, I'm sure we'll have people up there to get, to open several other active mines up almost immediately. And then, that'll be a boon to some of the businesses here, the mining businesses here.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be able to develop where Denmark refuses to, which is another argument, of course, in favor of this. Now, Denmark obviously doesn't want us to do this, not only for the climatological reasons, which of course those are definitely up there in their echelon of ideologies, but another thing that this does for Denmark that they really want to hold on to is like obviously this is the overwhelming majority of their land space, even though they don't actually live there and develop and be in those spaces. So, but this makes them have like a super outsized reach in the geopolitical world, right? This like makes
they get to be one of the cool kids.
Yeah, they get
controlling the Baltic Sea puts them there as well. But yes, Greenland definitely
so much more powerful in the geopolitical world, right? So much more important in the UN meetings and NATO meetings than they normally would be, because normally we would just kind of be like, all right, whatever, let the big kids talk. United States and UK and France are doing their thing. You just sit there, be quiet at the little kids table, and But
Yeah.
but because they have Greenland, they get a say in a lot of things that they probably don't really deserve a say in. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying that like I'm.
Well, and a lot of this is, I think a lot of this is has to do with Europe. So I want to read a tweet.
Yeah.
I don't want to take full credit for this idea, but this
share
was, he just put this really really succinctly
Okay.
about this, and something that I think we need to keep in mind.
Mhm.
Hold on just a minute. So this is Coach Noah at Noah Revoy, Revoy, posted.
Okay.
As Trump goes to Europe and says, you're going to need to build up your militaries because the United States cannot afford to keep large armies stationed in Europe anymore. We're going to need to pull them out, right? This is his position. Look, we need to reevaluate NATO. It's been 80 years since the end of the Second World War. It's been 30 years since the end of the Cold War. We've seen with Ukraine, the Russian military is not overwhelming. They could be, fought and stalled, and with legitimate resistance, things like that. We don't need to be providing this to you. Well, what did Europe say? They freaked out. Europe responds, no, we don't want you to do that. Don't move your armies, right? So then many hawkish politicians back here in the U.S. said, no, we don't want to pull our armies out of Europe. We don't want to pull back from NATO.
Right.
So Trump says, well, in that case, I want Greenland, right? We're already providing defense for it, right? Give me Greenland. Suddenly Europe decides to build up its military, increase the number of soldiers, expand equipment stockpiles, ramp up its capacity to produce military goods. Very quickly, European powers are likely to ask U.S. bases to be closed because they no longer want them or need them, right? So Trump can accomplish all this simply by saying he's going to take Greenland, without ever actually doing it. That's the power of words is magic. If you understand that Trump is a wizard, you would understand him much better. So this can be a means towards Trump trying to reevaluate the NATO, right? Getting Europe to step up and defend themselves.
Now,
and they're not willing to do it unless they see that the U.S. is, serious, right? With him not dropping this Greenland thing.
Right.
That's the only thing he thinks that's going to make them militarize in a real way.
Move their butt. It's possible. Now, I won't. Trump he's always been a conundrum to me because, and I've said this many times, there's a very fine line with a lot of the plays that he makes between him being this 5D chess player and being like barely able to manage tic-tac-toe, right? And it's almost because they would almost take the exact same action, right? Like saying, I want my toy, I want another toy to play with, I want Greenland is the tic-tac-toe era. What Christian just described is closer to the 5D chess side, but they're the same action, right? So how do you tell them apart? Now, I'm always hesitant to give Trump too much credit because, I've never been really much of a fan of Trump. But that being said, I can't say for certain that wasn't his plan. I don't know.
Well, or smart people in his administration said that, like, hey, if this is what you want, we can use this.
Right.
So keep talking about it. You want Greenland or whatever. And obviously, like Ukraine, we said this is Europe's concern. Europe needs to be. Now, the problem is Europe has dumped all of their arsenals into Ukraine. Yeah. So if they want to fight us militarily, they need to buy weapons from us so they can fight us for Greenland.
Yeah, all right. So let's move to that because I think this is a really important aspect of this. And of course, as usual, Trump's rhetoric is atrocious, as usual. Yeah. Right? And this is no shock. This should be no shock.
Well, it's not. It's disruptive.
Yeah. Well, not only is it disruptive,
it's definitely not diplomatic in the way that we've expected for the last 80 years.
Yeah, well, right. Obviously, Trump's a norm breaker. Like that's nothing new, right? That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. What I always find remarkable is that it comes as a surprise to some people, like to his enemies, constantly, to his political rivals. They're like, oh! And I'm like, Really, it's not that surprising. It's not that
Yeah.
surprising. Now, is it maybe is he saying what he shouldn't say? Yes, of course. Right, of course. This is Trump. Of course. Now, but let's talk about his rhetoric, okay? Because
Is he reading private notes openly in cabinet meetings? Yes, yeah. He's got a cluelessness about him about not saying things quietly. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the things that he said that people have reacted to, right? So one of his quotes, of course, and everybody's very well familiar with it at this point, is here. I'll say it exactly because I don't want to mess it up. Said, "I would like to make a deal, the easy way, right? But if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way, right?" With reference to Greenland, he's going to get Greenland the easy way or the hard way. Now, obviously, everyone on the left immediately jumps to, he's going to invade and take over Greenland and start a war with NATO and kill the whole world and all the things that are terrible. And I just have to say, he didn't even say that he was going to invade. Now, maybe he did mean that. I honestly, and I swear to you, I'm not saying this to carry water for Trump. I honestly don't know what he meant by that. Right? Because there are lots of different ways to unlike his statement, it's not a false dichotomy, right? There aren't just two ways to get Greenland, right? So the easy way could refer to buying it, and the hard way could refer to ramping up economic pressure until they give in, right? It could be a million different things. Now, I will grant that he might have meant the hard way is that we invade. And by invade, guys, I'm not talking about what would it take to conquer Greenland? Like a single Navy SEAL team? It's not like we send in 25,000 force recon units and hold the no.
Well, no, yeah, you'd want at least 10,000 soldiers to hold it. Yeah, as far as stopping their defense,
not a big.
As far as neutralizing their defense, yeah, that could be done with 1,000 soldiers or less plus.
I don't think that's ever even in the cards, right?
Yeah.
I think at worst, and I don't I don't understand why the left can't understand this point.
Mm-hmm.
At worst, what Trump is doing is starting the bargain from here so that when he gets negotiated down to here, that's where he always, or maybe he intended to be, here, and he's just getting a better deal than he expected. At worst, what he's doing is using this vague, thinly veiled threat as a means to negotiate. Because if you're staring down the barrel of USA might invade, then you're really left with no other choice but then to get the best deal that you can out of the situation, knowing that that's the alternative. Even if it's not actually an alternative, right?
I mean, I think the alternative too, or the hard way, if they say, all right, we withdraw our defense from it, and the expense that Denmark will have to defend it. The expense in new navies, in Air Force, having a real aircraft carrier, things like that, to
or all of NATO
region would be so expensive.
Yeah.
That
he could Trump that could be the hard way. The hard way could be Trump says, you know what, let's just pull out of NATO. You guys take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
Done. And that's a hardball play.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's what he meant. I don't. Yeah. And you know what? One thing that I wanted to point out is that if you guys remember just a couple of weeks ago, right, where we went into Venezuela, he quite expressly did say we're going to invade Venezuela and start tackling this stuff on land. He said it outright. So ask yourselves, if he's willing to say that outright, why would he not want to say this outright if that's what he meant?
Yeah.
Right. So I really don't feel like people are for some reason, they always jump to the worst conclusions with Trump, which that's normal enough for propaganda. But I just don't understand why they don't consider any other option. And they're so
the withdrawal from NATO. NATO, he's saying, look, you were weakened, decimated countries, or even more than decimated, devastated countries at the end of World War II.
Yeah.
And you needed us, or else Russia was just going to roll over the whole continent.
And
right?
We needed them at the time.
That is not the state of the world now.
Yeah.
You are robust economies. You have large populations. Even if you're struggling with large immigrant populations, not assimilating, and other things like that.
Mhm.
And Russia is not the threat that they were at the end in 1950, right?
Right.
And so,
Well, China
it's
is.
like pulling out of NATO is a real option for us now. Why should we have to guarantee that if Russia, attacks Estonia, right, or Lithuania or Latvia, we're automatically going to war with the nuclear power all
Right.
out? Why do we need to do that?
It's a huge risk on our part.
Right?
And
Now, if Europe wants to do that, let them do that. But this is really maybe a means to doing something that you're in favor of being less connected to the world, right? Less interventionist, and saying that, look, if we're the ones that makes NATO, all the NATO threats work, our military is the big dog.
right.
We're going to take that off the table. Are you prepared for that to be off the table, or is it better to let Greenland be in the which is in North American hemisphere, be governed and a part of the United States? We'll see.
Right. And so, yeah, like I think people maybe are often when I hear people discuss this too, it's like you said, they are often under the mistaken impression that NATO defends the world from Russia and from China. No, America defends the world from Russia and China. They just happen to be in a group called NATO, right? It's like being, I don't know. I don't even have good like sports analogy, but I was gonna say it's like being on the Lakers, but like only LeBron, only one player really matters. Like if you got, it's like being, but that's maybe giving too much credit because like the other team members actually have a say, do some things occasionally, but like literally we're like, I don't know, we're like 95% of the money and muscle of NATO.
The sports analogy would be Tiger Woods in his prime.
Yeah.
Like the money they made, the TV revenue, all the revenue from ticket sales for the things, like 75% of it was people who wanted to see Tiger. And when Tiger wasn't playing in events, boom, all that stuff dropped by a huge amount. So
it's like Mike Tyson for boxing. Like without him, it's like what is boxing left
he
at
was
that point in time,
boxing.
right?
So so the U.S., but Europe has really come out, especially in the 21st century, and made themselves to be really a rival of the United States economically. Have this European Union, but being able to do all of that under this blanket of defense provided by us, where they can underspend on defense,
yes,
and lavish free healthcare and other things upon their populace, and do economic deals and things like that because they don't have to have legitimate armies.
And
right?
You know what? I can't tell you how sick it makes me every time I get into a conversation about socialist programs, welfare state, and stuff like that. How I have to hear about, well, what about Scandinavia? What about Denmark gets free healthcare? They get free education. I'm like, because Denmark doesn't have to defend itself. Denmark doesn't have to do any of the things that our Constitution claims is actually the job of the federal government because we do it for them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that because I'm mad at them. I just don't want that being used as ammunition against us for why we, so right. So here's and I'm going to say because I'm not.
Especially I was just going to say one last thing with Ukraine, especially wanting in NATO. It's like, whoa, all right, now it's time for us to pull back.
Right.
We don't want to get in a provocative. Now, all right, you want to put Ukraine in NATO, do. But you're doing that without us. Anyway.
And I've always said, look, if when it comes to NATO, I don't have a problem being somebody's money and muscle. But if we're going to do that kind of work, we should get paid for it. We should get something out of the deal. Now, what that is doesn't have to be Greenland.
We don't get love and respect.
Yeah. We sure don't get love and respect. I mean, you go to listen to the world polls and we don't do that well.
Yeah.
And right. In response to us giving them this blanket of protection that they sleep under every night, they instead post propaganda against the American way of life all the time. And I'm like, well, thanks a lot. I mean, if that's what we're getting for our time and for our effort, it drives me nuts too, because every time something happens, Putin invades Ukraine. It's like, USA, are you going to let them do that? Aren't you going to help? Why don't you help over here? Why don't you stop Israel from the genocide? Why don't you Why don't you do all this? I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to serve as your police force and do everything for everyone, we ought to get something for it. We ought to make a fair, what the left calls a living wage, right?
Right. You know, one of the or probably the most valuable company in Denmark is.
No, is that?
He was in the Maersk shipping.
Yeah.
Right. And how are they so hugely profitable? Because the United States makes shipping insanely profitable.
Yep, safe,
right?
And no pirates.
Our Navy, right? They don't pay taxes to us, but they can have a shipping company that pours taxes into their social welfare that takes advantage of our Navy.
Yep. Now, that being said, I'm going to go float back to Trump's rhetoric because, again, I feel like these are, in fact, veiled threats, and not even very, thickly veiled. Like they're pretty transparent. Somebody's been, people have been asking me, am I in favor of this transition, this purchase of Greenland, right? And if it is a purchase, I just want to go ahead and state this for the record. If it is a purchase, if it's two people doing a business deal, I'm cool with it. 100% cool with it. We've purchased, I don't know, not one, not two, not seven, but like 20 different times in America to pick up land. This is like one group of people purchasing land from another group of people is as old as the dawn of time. So I don't know how anybody can actually. People do have a problem with that somehow.
Well, because there's populations there, they should, and they have self-government.
They should get a say.
Self-determination there.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I say if it's a purchase, if it's people all agreeing, ultimately, even if they, maybe not every single individual person, but like collaboratively, if Greenland's on board with it, if collaboratively Denmark's on board with it, if we're on board with it, and it wouldn't hurt if the European Union was cool with it too, but like we don't really need their permission because it's not theirs. But as long as everybody's on board with it, I am 100% okay with it. Now, I am not really okay with running business with like at the point of a gun.
Yeah,
not cool with having business conducted
with
these threats.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like because I think this is the problem with Trump's rhetoric is he's transformed, in my mind, what would have been a completely above board deal to a not above board deal simply by not being precise with his language. Again, I think if he'd just been precise with his language and say, look, this is something we need for national security. Okay, that's a fine thing to say. If he wants to say, look, this is something we can develop mineral deals better than they can. Okay, that's fine for him to say. If he wants to say, look, we're owed this because of NATO, that's okay to say. But it's not okay for him to say, we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way, because then that leaves people thinking, if we don't sell, do we even have that option, right? And that's where he needs to cut that off. This is why you can't let this little third grade rhetoric run things.
Well, he doesn't want to accept no for an answer right now. You saw the memes about the Danish negotiating team going in, and they just want to say no, thank you. We're not interested in any deal on Denmark. And he's like, no, like we're gonna have to talk about, no, right? There's gonna be consequences to that, right? And they all come out smoking, right?
Right.
And part of the thing is, that this is if he has some real threats and it's not military invasion, it means like is Denmark willing to push the U.S. out of NATO,
right?
And this is
Hey,
this is something I think that they would, they're still trying to analyze what our lives be like if the United States was not part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Real quick, since it doesn't seem like anybody's even on at the moment.
Sure.
So on one of my phones that I have, set up to get this thing, it says like one person is waiting. Are you on in a thing where you're on it too, like where you can like chat on it and stuff like that, or? I just want to see what it says
No,
to
it
you.
still won't let me join the chat.
Hold on. YouTube. I'm just want to see if there's something wrong here because we have a ridiculously small group of people, and I'm wondering if there's something going on here with StreamYard that it's not letting us do this thing. You know, because it's fun because I'm on. You know, my phone is showing the thing. It's showing the live thing, but it's not.
How many people does it say are
It
watching?
says one person is. Well, it doesn't even say anybody's watching. It says one person is waiting. Which I'm wondering. Hold on. Let me see if I turn this.
StreamYard says that, or YouTube says it?
YouTube says, all right, now it says 3 watching now on one of my things, which is better than it was before. I'm just checking. Okay, if you guys can see us, let me know. Oh, it's just you and me, basically, and then the thing. But I don't understand why we're so light. That doesn't make any sense. Why are we not? I mean,
there is the college football playoff tonight, but
yeah,
it's not like pro football. College football is not like pro football.
Shouldn't be that much of a loss, though. I mean, you know, we went from. I mean, I just have to note that we went from getting at the minimum like 100 views over the course of a thing to every time StreamYard we've run StreamYard, it's been like almost nothing.
Now, this is our first time on Monday, but you're right. It's unacceptably.
I mean, I even have people. I mean, I'm wondering. I even have people that like told me they were coming tonight. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm just curious to know if. I just want to do a couple of experiments real quick. Sorry for anybody who actually is watching, which I don't think anybody is, but for anybody who actually is watching, apologies for this. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with the channel at the moment, why this isn't working well. Because we used to be far more popular, and then I'm wondering if it's the.
You know what? How about for the last 20 minutes we drop out of StreamYard and just hop on Google Live on our phones like we used to? Just as
and then like it won't have any of the things, but we can do it, I guess.
Let's just try it for 15 minutes. Right. I know. I guess we won't have anything, but let's see. Like,
all right, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. All right, I'm going to set that up in a second.
Yeah.
All right. End stream.